The group stage of the ICC World Cup is done and dusted at last, and to say that India have had a good time in the group stage would be something of an understatement, because this is a team that has not even tasted a single defeat up until this point in the World Cup. India's record so far reads played 9, won 9. That is, no matter which way you try to spin it, a phenomenal achievement from the men in blue, and therefore means that they take all sorts of momentum into the semi-finals, where they will be taking on New Zealand at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. But what exactly are the reasons for India, let's say, having this sort of a dominant run, as well as being so optimistic for their chances of finally being able to end what has been a 10-year-long drought and counting as far as ICC trophy glory is concerned? So in this video, what we're going to do is we'll take a look at 5 things that India did consistently during the group stage that gives them, let's say, plenty of reasons for optimism going into the knockouts. Because again, it doesn't really matter what you do in the group stage, because the knockouts are a fresh start in a way, but you can continue doing the same things over and over and ensuring that you get the best results. So what are those things that India have done well? That's what we're going to go over right now. The first thing is, of course, the kind of quick fire starts that you've been getting from Captain Rohit Sharma. Now, Rohit Sharma has spoken a lot in the past about him wanting to be aggressive right from the get-go to ensure that the team gets off to a quick start and thus has a good platform to score as many runs as possible. And whilst Rohit's success in this template has been hit or miss, at least before the World Cup, in the World Cup, it's safe to say he's absolutely nailed it. He's been aggressive from the get-go, and whilst it has obviously impacted his personal scores, remember, he's only gotten the 100 during this World Cup. It's no exaggeration to say that without Rohit playing the way he did, India would not have been in a situation where they would be going 9 straight matches undefeated. In fact, him actually getting those quick starts has been a massive boost for the rest of the batting lineup, who perhaps haven't felt the pressure to continue playing that way, which leads us straight into point number 2. A lot of stability in the middle order. Now, if you go back to 2019, you knew that India had 3 top batters who they were reliant on, and that was the extent of it. You had Shikhar Dhawan, you had Rohit Sharma, and of course you had then captain Virat Kohli. However, on a day when any 3 of those failed to fire, or at least 2 or 3 of them failed to fire on any given time, you knew you were staring at a bit of trouble, because you had a conundrum as far as the number 4 position, and was your lower order was hit or miss at best. However, this time around, it's safe to say that you have solid, absolutely rock solid batting going all the way down to number 5, because you've seen good form from Virat Kohli in recent matches. You've seen Shreyas Iyer really come into his own, and of course KL Rahul has saved your hide on a couple of occasions as well. In fact, many would argue that he's probably having the best run and the most consistent run of his career, operating at number 5 in the ODI format. It's where he's been able to combine both his skills, which is of course the ability to both consolidate and then accelerate when fully set. So in that sense, India have gotten plenty of runs from their middle order, and one would hope that they continue on with the exact same kind of form that they have been showing during the group stage. Point number 3 is one that is patently obvious but is worth noting, is that the bowling lineup has been potent, clinical and effective. Whichever adjectives you want to use, none of them would, truth be told, probably be enough. Now, we knew coming into the World Cup that India's consistent bowling was going to be their strength. You had a bona fide match winner in Jasprit Bumrah, you had Kuldeep Yadav who could trouble pretty much anyone, and you had a Mohammad Shami who, even though he started the World Cup on the bench, you knew just how good he was, and there was of course a Mohammad Siraj already in the playing 11. You had plenty of very, very good bowling options, but the way they have delivered consistently is worth lauding, because again, there's only been 2 teams that India have not been able to bowl out, and they were ironically Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Barring that, India have gotten rid of pretty much every other team that they have faced off again, and it is quite frankly marvelous, because again, a lot of us who've been watching cricket for, say, maybe the past 15-20 years or maybe even longer, came up in an era where India's bowlers were probably not their biggest strength. It was always the batting, and you would oftentimes be envious of the bowling attacks that the other teams would have, specifically Pakistan. Now though, India's bowlers, it's safe to say the whether it be the pacers and spinners, the combination are right up there with the best in the world. Many would argue and say that they are in fact the best bowling attack in the world, given the way they have operated in home conditions so far during the World Cup. Now, the other two reasons are a little bit more, let's say, intangible, but they bear, let's say, some discussion regardless. At number 4, you have the ability to see out what would be referred to as bad phases. Now, what are those bad phases? As Indian fans, especially in this generation where you've not been having much success in the ICC trophies, you got used to hearing phases like a bad half an hour or 30 minutes of bad play, or one poor phase of play costing us a tournament. You got very used to hearing that, because generally speaking, the template used to be that India would start tournaments really well, and then in the knockouts you'd have that one bad match which would just undo all of the efforts that were made in the group stages. You saw it happen in 2015, you saw it happen in 2016, the T20 World Cup, 2017, the Champions Trophy, 2019, the ODI World Cup, and then of course in 2022 too, you can make the same argument. 2021 was probably the nadir, because you didn't even make it out of the group stages. You had two bad moments against both Pakistan and New Zealand, and that pretty much killed your campaign dead. This time around though, you have had two matches where you could have potentially been on the losing side of things if this were the Indian team of old. You of course had that situation where you were 2 for 3 against Australia in the opening game of the World Cup, and you had that little bit of a mini collapse that took place against England in Lucknow. To this team's credit, however, they were able to come through unscathed on not one but on both occasions. They managed to win the game against Australia quite comfortably, and even against England, despite the fact that little bit of a collapse happened, their own bowlers then struck back, thanks in no small part to the fact that the batters were also able to recover from that blow. So it is nice to see that this team, they're not infallible by any means. They have had a few moments where they've looked vulnerable, but the true making of a champion team is that if you look vulnerable, or if you are caught in a bad situation, how do you make the best of it and potentially get out? This team has shown that on two separate occasions during the group stage, and it does bode very well for the knockouts, where of course the stakes are higher and the likeliness of mistakes happening is far higher. So even if a couple of players make mistakes, you know that the rest of the team are well equipped enough to be able to deal with said mistakes. And last but not the least, and this is something that's worth knowing, is that they've come better through dealing with setbacks that have nothing to do with the game. Now, of course, the previous example was stuff that would be happening in the game where, the opposition were playing particularly well. The example I'm talking about here is, say, for instance, when Hardik Pandya got injured in that game against Bangladesh. It was unfortunate, absolutely, and it threw India's entire team composition off whack, because you'd remember that at that point, India were going with this approach of playing with 8 batsmen, or batting till number 8. So not only did you have a Hardik Pandya, but you also had a Shardul Thakur in the team, although his presence was pretty hotly debated by a lot of people. But once Pandya got injured, then you dropped Shardul as well, because you knew that Shardul, despite his abilities, was probably not a like-for-like replacement for Pandya at all. So what you did was you dropped you dropped Shardul. Pandya was already out, and you brought in 2 specialists in Suryakumar Yadav and Mohammad Shami. Sky has had maybe one good knock, but beyond that, it's safe to say that Shami has single-handedly won you games. And this ability of dealing well with a setback that, truth be told, you could not control. How many people would have been able to predict that Pandya would get injured like this? In fact, the big hope was that he doesn't get injured, because you don't quite frankly have his replacement. Yet that's exactly what happened, and the fact that the team were able to take that on the chin and move forward and continue their unbeaten run is definitely the stuff or the makings of a champion winning team. That is a very, very good sign, and one would hope that, considering this is going to be the combination they're going to be sticking with for the semi-finals and potentially the finals, that they continue to make it work exactly the way they have up until this point. And that's it from us in this particular video. Thank you guys so much for joining us. What do you think? Do you think there are more positives that India have taken during this time? Well, you can let us know that in the comments below. And don't forget, like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and tap that bell icon. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and download the SportsTak app or check out their website. It's in English and Hindi, depending on which language you prefer. And last but not least, stay tuned to Sports Today. Check out other videos that we've done. For now, though, from my side, it's goodbye.